Chazal give us a fascinating insight in the way we should think about the nation of Yishmael. The Sifri understands the pasuk, Hashem mi Sinai ba, v'zarach mi Seir lama, v'hofia mihar paran, that Hashem came from Sinai, having shone forth from Seir, having appeared from Mount Paran. That Seir was the place where Esav lived, like the pasuk tells us, that Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Lefanav El Esav, that Yaakov sent Malachim, messengers to Esav, Achiv, his brother in Artz Seir. So Hashem, before he came from Har Sinai, he went to the land of Esav. Hofia Mihar Paran, he having appeared from Mount Paran, which was the place where Yishmael lived. That was Vayeshev B'midbar Paran. So Chazal over there in the Medrash tell us that before the Torah was offered to the Jewish nation, Hashem first went to the other nations and said, do you want to have the Torah? Are you willing to accept the Torah? Are you interested in it? And each of the nations, first he went to Esav, and Esav told him, Maksivbe, what's written in the Torah? What do I have to obligate myself with? What do I have to give up to have the Torah? So Hashem tells him, Lo sirtzach, you should not kill. You're not allowed to kill. So Esav responded, not to kill? That's impossible. I got a bracha al charbecha tichya. By your sword you should live. And the bracha is congruent, is appropriate with my essence. And my essence is that to kill. I'm a killer. So therefore I can't possibly accept the Torah. The whole Torah is against my entire nature. So Hashem went to the next nation. He went to Yishmael. And Yishmael also asked, Maksivbe, I can't just accept something without knowing what it is. I can't just accept an entire Torah. What's written in it? Tell me a little about it. So what did Hashem tell them? Lo signov, you can't steal. You can't steal. You're not allowed to rob. You're not allowed to take things that don't belong to you. So Yishmael takes a step back and says, well, lo signov, that I can't do either. That's against my nature. I got a bracha from you. You Hashem, the Malach gave me my mother when she was carrying me a bracha. That he will be an unrestrained nation amongst men, and his hand will be against every man. His hand will take from every single other nation. So how could I accept the Torah when the Torah again goes against the bracha that was given to me? That the bracha that was given to me, or the definition, the way I was defined, is yadei, that my hand will be in everyone else's property. The Maral in Gevuras Hashem. And then the Medrash continues and it says he went to Ammon, he went to Moab, and each other nation they found the reason why they could not accept the Torah until Hashem finally came to the Jewish nation, and the Jewish nation didn't ask Maksivbe, what's written in the Torah, but rather they just accepted the Torah Nasav and Nishma, as we well know. The Maral explains this, that in reality Hashem did not go to all the other nations and appear to other nations and say, do you want the Torah? And there was a conversation between Hashem and the other nations, or even Hashem and the Malachim of the other nations. But rather, Hashem analyzed the nature of the other nations to see if they were capable of receiving the Torah, and he found that they were intrinsically incapable of receiving the Torah. In fact, he found that the very essence of the other nations were antagonistic to Torah. They couldn't accept the Torah. Like we said, that the brachas defined their essence of the other nations, and the other nations' essence wasn't able to accept the Torah. However, the Maral asks a question. If you go look at the pasuk, we are told that Hashem went to Seir, which we said was the place of Esav, and then afterwards he went to Paran, which is the place of Yishmael. But if you look at the Medrash besides these two nations goes and it says how he went to Ammon, he went to Moab, and went to other nations as well. Where does the Medrash see in the pasuk that he went to every other nation? Seemingly the pasuk just tells us that he went to two nations. And if he went to all the other nations, why does the Torah pick just Esav and Yishmael to tell us as an example of the nations that Hashem visited before going to the Jewish people and offering the Jewish people the Torah? The Maral tells us a very deep idea. He says that the Torah is coming to teach us, to explain why the Torah isn't appropriate for other nations. Esav and Yishmael were not just examples of nations, but they represent archetypes of two distortions that make a nation incapable of receiving the Torah. In fact, Svarim write, there's a Vilna Gaon that says that the Esav and Yishmael was really the shorish, the root of all the nations. All the other nations come from either Esav and Yishmael, and therefore that flaw which Esav and Yishmael had continued into the subsequent generations and the subsequent nations. And therefore when the Torah says the Esav and Yishmael, these are telling you why a nation can't receive the Torah, because they either have a flaw of Esav or their essence mirrors that of Yishmael. And what are these two things? This corresponds to what the Maharal writes in the Siv Haloshin, that there are two basic Yetzer Haras that we have. There's a Yetzer Hara of arayas, of self-indulgence, and there's a Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah, which is, the Ramchal describes Avodah Zarah as instead of serving Hashem, it's manipulating the stars to get what you want. It's the Yetzer Hara of power. That you want power. These are the two primary Yetzer Haras, the Yetzer Hara of self-indulgence, of pleasure, and the Yetzer Hara of power, striving to be in control. So that's what the pasuk is telling you, that the Torah is straight, and Esav and Yishmael are two types of distortions, which make a nation incapable of receiving the Torah. And then the Medrash just explains which nation had which distortion. But what's fascinating is each one of the nations, both Esav and Yishmael, took the midah of their father and distorted that. We know Avram was chesed. Titin emes Yaakov chesed li Avram. Avram was the paradigm. He was the epitome of chesed. Chesed, channeled correctly, should be channeled outwards. You do chesed to another individual, but if it's distorted, then it's channeled inwards. You look, how could I do chesed to myself? How could I pleasure myself? Instead of looking for ways to help other people, you look for a way, how could I take? Like the epitome of this is obviously arayas. The pasuk says, when it comes to when it speaks about illicit relationships. So one of the relationships is, it says, the pasuk says a man can't take his sister, and the pasuk says ki chesedhu. It's an absolute and total distortion of chesed. Being with a sister, that's chesed. So we see that chesed also, when inappropriately used, that becomes a distortion. That becomes a rayas. And this we find by Yishmael. Like the Gemara says that there was 10 measures of promiscuity was put into the world, and Yishmael took 9 of them. In fact, the Zohar tells us, has a similar medrash as the medrash that we started off with. The Zohar also goes that Hashem went to all the other nations, except for there's a little bit of a change. By Yishmael, when Hashem goes to Yishmael, he doesn't tell them lo signov, don't steal, but rather lo sinaf, don't commit adultery. But if we think about it, really this is all the same idea. Lo sigzo, lo sinaf, what's the idea? You're taking something that's not yours and using it for your own pleasure. That was the nature of Yishmael. He took the midah of Avram, he distorted the midah of chesed and channeled it inward till he did chesed to himself and disregarded the world. The Rambam writes, and it makes an amazing statement in the Igeres Teiman, which was a letter that he wrote to the community of Yemen that were being persecuted. And in it he makes an amazing statement. He says that if you want to know the essence of any nation, of any people, look to what their vision of heaven is. Look to where their dreams are fulfilled. And then you know what that nation stands for, what that nation strives for. And we know that the nation, and we know what our Olam Haba is connection with Hashem, but the nation of the Muslim vision is, we know what that is, the place that they go with 72 versions. Just interesting, 72 is Gematria Chesed. That's Yishmael. He took the midah of his father, that was Chesed, of Avram, that was Chesed, and he distorted and channeled it inward. Esav as well, he also took the midah of his father Yitzchak. Yitzchak, Pachad Yitzchak, he took the midah of power and used it correctly. He channeled it inward. Right? Ezehu Giber, who's a man of strength, who's someone who has power. Hakovesh is Yisro. He channels it inwards and controls his own drives. Esav took that midah and channeled it outward. When power is channeled outward, when gevura is channeled outward, that becomes ritzicha, and that's why he got the bracha al charbecha tichya. And that's why the bracha al charbecha tichya, that you should live by the sword, was so appropriate for Yitzchak, because that was he took the midah of Yitzchak, was so appropriate for Esav, because he took the midah of Yitzchak, which led Yitzchak to even tell his father, bind me up on the altar, bind me up so I don't move. I'm just nervous that I'm going to move, so I want to have total self-control. So bind me up. And this was taken and then channeled outward. And when it's channeled outward, that becomes murder. Al charbecha tichya was appropriate for Esav. But if we think, but who cares? Why is it important? Why does the Medrash spend so much time telling us about all the other nations? The Jewish nation as themselves have their own special mission. Why can't we just focus on what's unique about us, and then when we know what's unique about us, then we know what we have to accomplish, instead of focusing on all the other nations, what their characteristics are, what their nature is, what their essence is. Like, why is that important? Just let's focus on what we have to do, what our job is, and commit ourselves to fulfilling that. Why do we have to look outwards? So Rav Dessler tells us a powerful answer. He says that right now that we're in Gullus, that we're in exile, one of the aspects of exile one of the aspects of Gullus is that when a sin is committed, or when the destruction of the temple is brought about by a specific midah, a specific character trait, then Hashem places us under a nation that has that same character trait, that exhibits that midah, and that same midah ra. If we're able to overcome that specific chait, that specific midah ra, in an environment or in a nation that has that where that particular avera, that particular chait, that particular midah ra is prominent, then we will have accomplished our tikkun and a kapara for the sin that brought us to Gullus. Rav Dessler explains that every time when we go to Gullus, it's not an accident that we're under Bavel, Paras, whether under Babylon, Persia. The reason why we're under these nations is because what caused our exile was a specific character trait, a specific sin. And that nation that we're now under also has that sin, also has that character trait. And therefore we're put in that environment. It's to teach us what we did wrong, but also it's to give us an opportunity to rectify the past sins. That if we, in such an environment, in such a situation where the entire nation that we have also sins, that also does that same sin and also has that same character trait that caused the Gullus, and then under such a situation we're able to correct that, we're able to rise above that and do tshuva on that chait, and if we're able to change that bad character trait, then we will have accomplished what we need to accomplish in the Gullus, and then we'll have achieved tshuva. That's where Rav Dessler says. And really this idea is seen very clearly in the Maral in Or Chadash. The Maral over there is coming to explain a Gemara. The Gemara in Megillah, based on a pasuk in Vayikra, it's on the sheets, it says, V'af gam bezos b'hiyoysam be'eretz ha'yeveim, loy ma'astim, loy ga'altim l'chaloysam, l'hafer brisi yitam, ki ani Hashem lekechem. But despite all this, while they will be in the land of their enemies, I will not have been disgusted by them, nor will I have rejected them, to obliterate them, to annul my covenant in them, for I am Hashem your God. And the Gemara over there explains, what's this, all these different languages, what are all these expressions coming to teach us? So the Gemara explains that each one is dealing with a different experience in Gullus. Loi ma'astim, I haven't been disgusted by them, bimei kastim, in the times of kastim, shamadi lahem, which was Bavel, which is Babylon. Shamadati lahem, because I gave them an opportunity for them to be able to rectify their sins. Why? Because there was a Daniel, a Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. There were these great leaders. And then it continued, Lo ga'altem b'mei Haman and Achashverosh. I wasn't disgusted by them in the times of Haman and Achashverosh. Why? Because there was a Mordechai and an Esther. Meaning each galus, besides the problem, I also created the solution. In the times of the Greeks, there was Shimon HaTzadik and Matis Yochanan Kohen Gadol. There were the Chashmonaim. And finally, in the times of Rome, in the exile of Rome, there was Rebbe who wrote the Mishnah, and all the Chachmei Doros and all the leaders, all the Tanaim at that time. The Maharal explains what does this Gemara mean? That each time there was an exile, there was a leader. What are we supposed to take out from this Gemara? The Maharal explains based on a different Gemara that says that the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of the three cardinal sins: the murder, promiscuity, and Avodah Zarah. And the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, that baseless hatred. So the Maharal explains that since these were the weaknesses of the Jewish people, that in the first Beis HaMikdash they sinned in these three Averas. Since this was the weaknesses of the Jewish people, these generations, therefore Hashem caused Klal Yisrael, caused the Jewish nation to be exiled and subjugated in various exiles, where they would be forced to confront these particular Averas, where they'd be forced to confront idolatry, where they'd be forced to confront murder, and then they would have the opportunity to be able to overcome this, and they would be able to earn penance for their Averas. They'll be able to do tshuva and get kapara. And he explains that the first of these exiles was Babylon. There, the ruler at that time was Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar created this gigantic idol, and he demanded that everyone bow down and serve this idol. So what happened? Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah was there, and they refused. They were willing to get thrown into a furnace, into a fire, instead of serving this idol. They went into Babel because they served idolatry, and Babel also served idolatry, and it was an environment that held idolatry to be dear, and it was prominent in such a society. So they went into Babel, and they were given this opportunity, and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah rose above this idolatry, and they were therefore saved, and therefore they were masak, and they fixed up the sin of idolatry. In the second exile we had Persia, where we were delivered into the hand of Achashverosh and Haman. So we know that we were given over to be killed by Achashverosh and Haman as a punishment, that if we kill Shofech dam ba'adam ba'adam dam yishuv, if someone kills someone, then his blood will be spilled. That this was going to be a time that we would correct murder, one of the other cardinal sins that caused us to be exiled. And so we went and we were delivered to a nation that was going to murder us. Also, they had a disregard to human life. They were willing to wipe out an entire country. So what saved us over there? There was Mordechai, who was loved by most of the people, V'diber Shalom Ba'amo, that he preached peace, the antithesis of murder. In fact, the Gemara tells us that the very nature to this, that Mordechai was the antithesis of murder, is alluded to in his name itself. The Gemara asks, where is Mordechai hinted to in the Torah? And the Gemara tells us, because if you take the name, when you look at the Ketoras, the incense, so you'll find one of the spices is called Mor Deror, and which is translated in Aramaic as Merdachia, which is obviously Mordechai. Merdachia is Mordechai. This was one of the spices then, so Mordechai is hinted to in the Ketoras and the incense. In the incense, the Rashi and Korach tells us that it has the ability to stop the Malach HaMavos. When there was a big plague for the Jewish, after the incident of Korach, after the Jewish people complained, so the Malach HaMavos came down and was wiping out and was killing the Jewish people. So what happened was Moshe told Aaron, quickly grab the incense, grab the Ketoras and offer it up, and that will stop the Malach HaMavos. The very nature of Mordechai was the antithesis of murder. He was Diber Shalom, he preached peace, and also he was hinted to, you see that where he's alluded to in the Torah was in the Ketores, which also has the ability to stop murder. So therefore in Persia, where they went in because they were murdered, they were saved because of a leader, Mordechai. That's how they fixed that problem. The third kingdom that ruled over the Jewish people after the first exile was Yavin, was Greece. During the times of the Chashmonaim, by Greece they made a decree that before anyone could get married, the bride had to first spend time with a Greek officer. That was a punishment for promiscuity. They were subjugated under a nation that obviously also had a disregard to what's mine, relationships. And how were they saved? We know from the heroic actions of the Chashmonaim, who were Kohanim, who were priests, and Kedoshim. Kedoshim is holy people are someone who remove themselves, who safeguard themselves from illicit relationships. That's how they were saved. In fact, the whole revolt started by the wedding of the daughter of Yehudis, the daughter of Yochanan Kohen Gadol, because she refused to listen to this decree. And therefore this was how the revolt started, and how they were saved was by the Chashmonaim, the Kedoshim, the holy people, who were also the antithesis and of promiscuity, and therefore they were able to rectify that. They were able to bring tshuva and kapara for the sin of promiscuity. So that's how we see how the three guluses, the three exiles of the first, after the destruction of the first temple, all are caused because of sins that we do. And he just the last one, in the second Beis HaMikdash, so they were destroyed by Rome. The second Beis HaMikdash we know was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because of baseless hatred. What does baseless hatred do? It destroys society. No people can live together. Shuls are split. People go away from each other. No one can live together if there's just a sense of hate, just a feeling of hatred one amongst another. So what did Rome do? Rome also dispersed the Jewish people. They were also sent out all over. They also, as we see, that they also had this midah of baseless hatred, which causes society to break up and causes nations to be spread out. And this is obviously the onish for baseless hatred. After the Churban, after the exile, there was a tremendous rebirth, a tremendous increase of Torah. Specifically Torah Shebal Peh. This was going to be a rectification for baseless hatred, because like the Mishnah we say every Friday night, Talmidei Chachamim Marbim Shalom Ba'olam, that scholars cause that there to be peace in the world. This was, and more specifically, the fact that the entire Mishnayos were created then. The Mishnayos was a collection of all the different opinions, all the different schools, and put into one book, so all the different people can now study together. This would be a way to correct sinas chinam, of baseless hatred. So we see how all the exiles are not by accident, but we see how all the different exiles is really is a reflection of what caused the exile. The three cardinal sins caused that we have the Babylon, Persia, and Greece. That was the exile. Each one was to rectify a certain sin. Baseless hatred brought us to Rome. So we see there is a tremendous importance of understanding the nature of the other nations. We can't just focus on what we want to do, on what our mission is, what our goal is, what our nature is, because part of what we have to understand is why we're in a specific, why we are exiled by, why are we subjugated by a specific nation. Because each nation that we're exiled under is there to cause us to do tshuva on a specific avera, or to correct a specific character trait. So therefore we need to know the nature of other nations as well. And therefore, right now that we're under Galus Yishmael, under the exile of the Muslim exile, we have to understand, so what's the nature of Yishmael? What's the nature? A little bit we touched on from the Sifri, that the nature of Yishmael is that he distorted the midah of chesed, the character of chesed. Instead of channeling it outward, he channeled it inward and caused a desire for self-indulgence. But let's try to go a little deeper and have a better understanding, a better picture of Galus Yishmael. If we could find, how does one go about doing this? So if we could find the shorish, the root, Svarim say, the Ramban, the Rav Tzadok writes that if you could find the first time any word is mentioned in the Torah, then that will tell us about the root of that word. What is it supposed to be? And just to explain more, the Ramban says that the Bereshis is called Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, because that was the spiritual beginning of the source of everything. So if we could find where Yishmael is first mentioned in the Torah, then we could get like a greater picture of Yishmael, and we could understand with the information that we have that he distorted Chesed, and put these different definitions together and try to get a complete picture of who Yishmael is, what's the nature of Yishmael, and by then we'll be able to understand the Galus and what we're supposed to be doing in this Galus, in this exile, under Yishmael. So the first time we're introduced to Yishmael in Sefer Bereshis is really by Hagar. Hagar runs away from Avram after Hagar runs away from Sarah after Sarah starts to be tough with her, and is met by Malachim in the Midbar, by a spring. So the Malachim tell us, the Pasuk tells us that Hagar is told, Vayomer, the angel said, Hagar Shivcha Sarah, Hagar, the maidservant of Sarai, Eimi ze basa, where are you coming from? Shuv el gevirtech, go back to your mistress, v'hisani tachas yadeha, and you will and listen to her. V'yaladeta bein, and you will give birth to a child, a son. Vayikra shema Yishmael, and he will be called Yishmael. And the pasuk describes Yishmael more, that he will be v'huye para adam, that he will be a para adam. So what do we see? It's clear that, and specifically in announcing the future birth of Yishmael, the Malach in the pasuk is stressing one aspect of Yishmael, that he is the son of a maidservant, and his mother is a Shivcha, under the dominion of Sarah. So we see therefore that the stress on Yishmael is that in essence he's an Eved, that he's a servant. So what's the nature of a servant? So to truly understand the nature of a servant, let's contrast it to its diametric opposite, the nature of a king, of a melech. The Ibn Ezra tells us that when he speaks about the parsha of Nazir, that the word Nazir comes from the word crown, Nezer. As the pasuk says, Ki Nezer Elokav al Rosho. And there he explains what's the connection between Nazir and Nezer, the crown. Nazir, someone who's a Nazir, Nazirite, and someone who's in the crown. What's the connection between a Nazirite and a king? So he explains, Da, you should know, Kol b'nei Adam ovdei taivas olam. Everyone else, every man serves the lure is servants to the desires of the world. V'hamelech ha'amiti, the true king, who's in essence the king, sheyesh lo ateres, that he's deserving of a crown. Kol mishu chafshi min ha'taivas, anyone who's free from desire. The essence of a king is that he has dominion over other people. He controls a whole nation. But most importantly, that he has control over himself. That's the nature of a king, a man who has a total self-control. And therefore a Nazir who won't drink wine, who won't go to certain areas, he's referred to as a king, because that's the nature of a king. The nature of a king is someone who has control over himself. Instead of being ruled by things outside of him, but he rules other things and himself as well. The opposite of a king is an Eved. That an Eved not only is controlled by other people, but also he's controlled by other things. He has no control over himself. His drives control him, his passion controls him, his pleasure controls him. He's controlled by other things. And that's the truth, that's the nature of an Eved. The Gemara tells us that avda behefkera nichale, that a servant likes to be without hefker. He doesn't like to be controlled. He doesn't want to be. There it's speaking about that he doesn't want to become Jewish because then he can't marry anyone. He wants to be able to marry everyone. That's the nature of an Eved. That's the nature. Then that's a little bit of the nature of Yishmael. And that's why the pasuk refers to him as a para adam. Rav Hirsch explains that para comes from a upara, that which means with a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, para lamed medaber mi yeshiven. A wild donkey is accustomed to wilderness. Who will restrain this wild donkey? That's the nature of an Eved. That's the nature of Yishmael. Para adam is unrestrained amongst man. And the truth is, if we look around today, that's what we see. We all know what's going on in Egypt. That there's someone walks in the other day, who's the president of Egypt? It really depends on the minute. There's no one has control of anything. It's a nation without any restraint, any self-control. Leaders are unable to control their followers. They're not able to make alliances. In fact, one of the greatest advantages for Israel is that they can't do this. That they're not able to come together and join as one army and just fight and fight together. That's not the nature of Yishmael, is that they're without self-restraint, that they have no unified organization, no one leader that everyone looks up to. That's the nature of Yishmael, that they're unrestrained, they're without any self-control. That's the nature of Yishmael. Let's take a look. So what then is the nature of Yishmael? That the exile of Yishmael. If the nature of Yishmael is someone who follows his drives and is not in control of himself, and as we see what's going on in the world today, so what then is the nature of Yishmael that we're suffering under? And what do we have to fix up? What chataim are we suffering for? What sins are we suffering for? How could we rectify and get out of Golus Yishmael today? So there's an amazing quote from the Zohar at the end of Parshas Ve'era. He says, "Come and see that there are 400 years. It's in the back, I think, of the sheet. 400 years that the angel of Yishmael stood and requested. When he requested from Hashem, Amar lo, he said, this angel of Yishmael, this Sar, the one who fought for Yishmael's rights in Shemaim and heaven, Misha Nimolo Chelek B'Shmecha, someone who had a bris milah, he should also get a portion. He should also share in your name. Amar lo Akad Ma'asa Hashem, what did Hashem do? Klapei Tainas Asar, how did Hashem answer him? So he said, Hirchak b'nei Yishmael midvekas. The first thing he did, he totally separated him. He pushed him away. V'nasan lo hachelek lematan, he gave him a portion down below, be'eretz hakadosh, in the Holy Land. He gave them the ability. Hashem gave them the ability to have Eretz Yisrael. B'shvil hamilah shebehem. This was as a reward because that Yishmael had a bris milah. So as a reward for the bris milah, like the angel of Yishmael pushed for and asked for, therefore they were given the Eretz Kedusha, they were given Eretz Yisrael. They also have Israel. And it continues and says that Yishmael will have control over Eretz Yisrael, will have control over Israel for a long time. Shehi reika mikol, but it's empty of everything. Just like the milah, like their milah, that their bris milah is also empty of everything. So the Zohar tells us for 400 years that the angel of Yishmael came and pushed that Yishmael be rewarded for the bris milah. Bris milah, Yitzchak got a bris milah at 8 days old. The angel of Yishmael goes up and says how Yishmael got a milah, bris milah at 13 years old. For that he doesn't get rewarded, and this not only continues by Yishmael. This started from Yishmael, but all the subsequent generations also get a bris milah. They don't get to. Where's the reward for that? So Hashem tells him, "You're right. You're going to get an empty land. You're going to get the Holy Land, but as an empty land, and as a reward for an empty bris." What does it mean that they'll get an empty land? What does it mean, an empty bris? What does this medrash mean? In essence, the essence of Eretz Yisrael is that it has the presence of Shekhinah. Right, is manifest in the Beis Hamikdash. So we know that the Shekhinah is in Eretz Yisrael. the miracles that happened. There's the Beis HaMikdash was the portal where we were able to experience the Shekhinah. The miracles happened in the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash was the place where we saw Shekhinah, and the truth is Shekhinah was throughout Eretz Yisrael. Every other of the four nations, when they ruled over Israel, when they conquered Eretz Yisrael, they conquered a land with the Beis HaMikdash. They didn't just conquer an empty land. It was a land with the Beis HaMikdash. Babylon had a Beis HaMikdash. Persia, Greece, there was always a Beis HaMikdash. Rome, until Rome finally destroyed the second temple. But there always was a Beis HaMikdash. It was only the Muslims that came later. After Rome already destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, then the Muslims took over. Then Yishmael took over, and that started Golus Yishmael. The Beis HaMikdash, when they came, was already destroyed. In a sense, although it's true that Eretz Yisrael has holiness, but in a certain sense you could say that the land is empty. They got an external land without the Beis HaMikdash. They got the way the Zohar says it, that it's Reika. That all the other nations got a land with the Beis HaMikdash, which with the Shekhinah much stronger. The Shekhinah was much more revealed during the time of the Beis HaMikdash. When Yishmael came, when the Muslims came and conquered the land, it could be said that they got an empty land. Although there was Kedusha, they got an external land without its true internal nature. It was Reika. It had no inside. In a certain sense, that also is the description of the Bris Milah, the Milah of Yishmael as well. What's a Bris Milah? So all the Mefarshim explain that the Bris Milah is a symbol. The way Rav Hirsch says that you cut off an arala. The arala is something that you have no control over. What you're symbolically doing by a Bris Milah is you're showing that I'm going to be in control now of all my drives. Before Avram got the Bris Milah, he was called Avram, which has the numerical value of 243. That there were, and the Mefarshim, the Rashi says that there were 243 limbs that he had total control. There were 5 that weren't. After the Bris Milah, he became Avraham. Then now he had a control of all his 248 limbs. The Bris Milah is a symbolic action of showing that right now, I'm not going to follow my drives. I'm not going to just go wherever my heart wants. I'm going to be in control. In other words, the entire idea of Bris Milah is that you have self-control. That's what the Bris Milah is. Yishmael also had a bris. Yishmael also had a bris at 13 years old. But what he did was an external action. It was a ritual which didn't really impact his personality, didn't affect him at all. His essence, his nature remained the same. Yishmael, had a bris milah at 13, and still, when it came time for the Torah to be given, many, many years later, Hashem analyzed his nature and saw also that his bris wasn't real. That the bris was something external, that he couldn't say lo signov and say I accept, I won't steal. He couldn't answer lo sinov when Hashem offered him the Torah and say maksiv be. Yishmael answers maksiv be. What's written in it? And he says don't commit adultery. Yishmael couldn't say on even such a basic thing of not committing adultery I accept. Yishmael's bris milah was an external action which didn't affect him at all. The essence of, and this is the essence of Golus Yishmael. Golus Yishmael is right now we're in an exile, that we're persecuted by a nation that has all the outer trappings of religion. In a certain way, they seem to be the most religious. But it's a religion without any internal growth, without any development, without any change inside. It's all externals. There's nothing real. There's nothing internal. That's the nature of Yishmael. That's the nature of Golus Yishmael. So that means right now, this is how we can have and that's how you can have a nation that has all external without any self-development. That's what you could have. You could have a nation that thinks what's the epitome of religion. That's intifada. You could have a nation that the epitome of religion is suicide bombers. The whole way they fight, it's all for the sake of their God. All that is all just, it's because their whole nature is external without any self-development, without any trying to grow. So therefore, if that's the nature of Galus Yishmael, and we know that the way to get out, the way to get tshuva for, and that means that we're brought into this Galus for the same reasons as the nation. We're put into a Galus under a specific nation because we exhibit these as well. Like we saw by Babylon, Persia, we're all brought in for a specific reason. So therefore that means that our task in this Galus is to strengthen our own service of Hashem, and to ensure things that are not just external actions they're not just praying without any emotion. They're not just rituals without any development inside, but they have to be. It can't be a mitzvah reika, but as the Gemara defines the bris of Avram Avinu, that they have to be actions, and we make actions. The way to fix up what we have to fix up in this galus would be then, it's to do actions that our bris be a true bris, and then all the mitzvahs that we do be true. That just like the way the Gemara describes the bris of Avram Avinu, the meal of Avram Avinu, that he went from Avram to 243 limbs to 248 limbs, that they're actions that permeate our entire essence, and that's the mission in Galus Yishmael.